given the recent strains between India and the United States of America, how does one read the visit by America's envoy, along with a top US naval commander, to the Western Military Command in Punjab, recently at the heart of the Operation Sindoor military conflict between India and Pakistan? Is it a message to Trump, or rather, is it a message from Trump to Asim Munir, somebody whom he otherwise used to call his favorite field marshal? Remember, only in the past few days have we heard Khwaja Asif talk about how Pakistan was used like toilet paper, used and thrown by the Americans. What do we make of this visit? While this is not the first time that such a visit has taken place, it's certainly the first time that such a visit has taken place after Operation Sindoor and after a prolonged period of tensions between Delhi and Washington. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. On the program today, we try and decode the larger messaging of the military diplomacy that took American envoy Sergio Gor, along with a top US admiral, to the Western Military Command. Now, the Western Military Command is centered in Chandigarh. It's not far from the border with Pakistan. And of course, in recent months, during Operation Sindoor, it was at the heart of India's military conflict with Pakistan as a response to the Pahalgam terror attack. This is the first such contact ever since tensions exploded and erupted between India and the United States. We do have a trade agreement. Not everything is settled, but is this the beginning of an upward trend in Indo-US relations? And more interestingly, at a time when India has been concerned about the cozying up between Pakistan and America, and Trump even called Asim Munir his favorite field marshal, is this, in fact, a message to Islamabad? Let's introduce our two expert guests today as we try and understand the larger meaning, the larger messaging. Military veteran General Shukla is with us, of course, also an author of a recently published excellent book on civil military fusion. Welcome to the program. And also joining us is a veteran diplomat, somebody who never pulls his punches. Ambassador Manjeev Puri is with us. Welcome, gentlemen. In this case, let me start with General Shukla. Because this is at least partly a military development. You have long spoken about the value of military diplomacy. You have long spoken about the need for militaries to talk when sometimes governments can't. This is a kind of combination of things that is happening here, right? There's the diplomat, there's the naval commander. What is the significance?
Well, Barkha, I welcome the visit on several accounts. But may I point out that it is not novel. If my memory served me right, it was in 1991 that, consequent to the Kicklighter proposals, I think Claude Kicklighter, he was the general of IPACOM, quite similar to Admiral Paparo, who's currently on a visit. He kicked off these initiatives of intensifying, bilateral defense cooperation between India and USA. And coming soon after the Cold War, it was a pretty significant event. So there were staff visits, delegation exchanges, and thereafter there were some technology pathways. It is not new at all. When I was the Army Commander at RTRAC, I remember I hosted the Chief of Defense Staff of the United Kingdoms.
It's not novel, but may I ask you, it's not novel, but is it common?
Yeah, so that's what I'm telling you, how common it is. I've traveled to IPACOM as Army Commander. I've traveled to the Army Futures Command of the USA as Army Commander. And this visit, I think, is routine. Admiral Paparo, as IPACOM Commander, travels often to Delhi. I think he met the CDS, and normally you visit one of the theaters, and this time it is the Western Command. Now, what is a little, shall we say, not so ordinary, is that the IPACOM commander would normally meet the Eastern Naval Commander or the Eastern Commander. This time he's meeting the Western Command. But, you said so, and Admiral Paparo yesterday said that the Indo-defense relationship is on a steeply upwardly climb. I mean, if that is the case, I would welcome it, because I keep saying this that India needs the Americans as the Americans need us. For a host of reasons, our interests are convergent geopolitically from the value, democracy prism, so on and so forth. And therefore, if it is a step in that direction, I welcome it. I have also been saying for a while that now India is what, the fourth largest economy, third largest in terms of comprehensive national power. When it comes to military diplomacy, we seem to be punching below our weight. In Sindoor, see what Kuruvilla, the Asim Munir equation did to the Pakistanis. So we should be interacting both actively with CENTCOM and IPACOM because that is our area of interest and influence. And in that sense, the Western Army Commander, the post is a prospective theatre command. The theatre commander will have a quasi-diplomatic role. Eastern theatre commander should be looking at Bangladesh, Myanmar, this side along our western horizon, so that force complements diplomacy. And a robust foreign policy should have both
But
the arm.
can I ask you something? Can I ask you?
Yeah.
And can I ask you? Do excuse me if this is a silly question. The admiral, the U.S. Commander of the Indo-Pacific Command, typically would he or somebody like him not seek a visit or an interaction with the Navy? Why particularly, or would it be routine for him to go with the envoy to an army command so close to the Pakistan border, one that has been at the center of action with Op Sindoor? Again, I mean, it's very interesting, and that's why I'm asking. No conspiracy theories or anything. I just want to understand.
Yeah, Barkha, you would not ask the question if we had theatre commands, because theatre commands are joint commands.
Correct.
So this is our fault, and you asked the question because we are delaying that. But anyway, the good news is, at least I've heard from a couple of sources that the theatre commands will be unveiled somewhere in May. So if that happens, next time Paparo comes visiting, he'll be visiting the Western theatre commander or the Eastern theatre commander. So I think in that sense, it is because we are behind the curve. They have to visit, these naval army and see what is more interesting. He's traveling to Bangalore, where he's visiting startups in space, startups in cyber. That is where we need the Americans the most. In fact, that whole business of, Indus X Trust was to set these kind of partnerships to energize them. And then, unfortunately, we went into that bad phase with President Trump.
So let me get Ambassador Puri on that note. The bad phase with President Trump. Are we out of that phase? Does this signify one thing has to be said? There were a lot of skeptics when Gor's appointment was announced because of the double-hatted nature of his job, because he's envoy for South and Central Asia as well. However, there is some re-energizing of things between India and America since he got here. I think not having an American ambassador in India for so many months was definitely a problem. And Gor seems to have invigorated the relationship with some energy. He's all over the place. He's meeting people. He's even watching cricket. How do you see this visit to the Western Military Command, Ambassador?
Barkha, thank you very much. Look, I so much agree with you. Not having an ambassador, a United States ambassador, that's not good. And which is the reason? Because the US ambassadors are, unlike us, not career diplomats. They are appointees of the president, they rank very high up, and they are known to the president. So the ability of the ambassador to be able to reach out to the highest level is great, and we've seen it happening perfectly fine. Barkha, the issue of the ambassador also visiting them, or this commander from the US Pacific Command going across there, I don't see any great issue in that. That's perfectly fine. And I completely agree with General Shukla. We should get over this old theory of keeping the military to attaches and so on. Let them be part of the growing India. That's no issue at all. Why has he gone to the Western Command? Obvious reason. He wants to go there where there was some action. And on a lighter note, if I may tell you, what does it say about Indo-Pacific? Let's leave that out. Okay, let's leave that out. We and our great obsession
we'll come to that. I have questions.
Yeah, we and our great obsession with the Indo-Pacific. Okay, so let's understand. We also don't know what's happening at the other side. How many American ambassadors and generals are visiting the various frontline people at that end? We have no idea. You know what the issue here is not about this commander going and meeting there. It's the question of what you said, this ambassador who's all over the place. And people have a right, and they have a right to ask this question that, look, we've gone through a phase. Thank you very much for doing what it is. Let's not get hand over head in saying everybody wants a photograph with the guy. He's going all over the place. Come on, what are you doing here? That he would have said, the general is coming, I'm coming with you, what can you do? But let's play this a little measuredly. Let's
So
play
I
along
think you're
the
saying,
standard line.
I think you're saying that given the rupture, and it is a rupture.
These
Given,
optics are not just the rupture, not just the rupture in any circumstance. Look, Barkha, timing, optics, these things are also important. But he's doing what he thinks is great for himself, and he's projecting it. And the questions that people are asking, what is this? Who is it? Look, I was India's ambassador in Nepal, which you could say the same kind of expressions that are being used for Mr. Sergio Gor out here are commonly used for the Indian ambassador in Nepal. Yet one would be very careful. There are lots of things you did and lots of things you said nahi karte. Koi zarurat nahi. You can do it in any other.
so what is he doing? What is he doing that you feel is too
Look,
much?
look. How many ambassadors of other countries are going about doing all this, visiting commands of this kind, being very much there? Look, I'll tell you this. He comes from a political background. He's doing what he thinks is good for him. Are we part of this? Are we saying it's happening, it's fine? Is the Indian ambassador going about meeting various people like this? No. The optics of this are a matter. Look, when we talk in terms of strategic autonomy, and General Saab and I may not be on the same page, I at least strongly believe that for India, this lean, and Barkha, I've referred to this for months on end at your program. In my case, the lean is something we should be a little mindful of, because this is a
Let me explain the lean to people who may not be familiar. You basically think anything that leans too much towards America or any great power is a problem.
Especially a super hegemon, because hegemons, typically don't seek partners. And the word ally needs to be understood. It's not partnerships. This is the nature of all of this. And we have seen, haven't you seen Europe? You've seen what the state of play is. Japan, 25 years, the world's second largest economy. So where I come from, maybe I've lived in the village too long. I have absolutely no problem about the Americans in the startup, all that perfectly fine. Zarur karo so. But from our side, to the extent you can, it's a little important to be mindful. Of course, each of us personally, on every other level, the Americans are the largest economy, everything very good. But a little bit of fun. What's happened to the mother of all deals? We've forgotten about the mother. There is President Macron in India. And yet, even you think that it's important to have a conversation on this. The thing is, it's this lean which has got inculcated.
Macron, on a lighter note, because we're talking about optics, Macron went for a jog in Mumbai, and right now that's what everybody is talking about.
I'm happy. That's current. And there's nothing wrong in it. My little point on all this is, look, the United States is important without doubt at all. But let's also remember, at least as far as I'm concerned, let's also remember, it's not very easy to do multi-alignment. It's a difficult task. And so, therefore, you have to be more than mindful. But other than that, look, I have no problem with him going and meeting the Western Command.
All you're saying is don't get overexcited about it.
And think about, there are lots of people in the public who are asking you, ho kya raha? And they are not really wrong either.
Okay. Ho kya raha hai? Let's get General Shukla. I don't think you mean particularly the visit to the military command. That you're saying, it's more like thoda calm down. Calm down is what you're saying. All right. General Shukla, I want to read out to you a question from one of our very regular viewers, Saurabh Vashisht. Saurabh says the Pentagon has deep links with Pakistan and US generals often visit bases there. The more important point is Marco Rubio's speech in Munich at the Munich Security Conference, a paean to colonialism that would make even Neil Ferguson blush. Now, I think we all know Rubio's speech at the Munich Security Conference made headlines. I think the larger question here is, listen, what's happening here must be also happening there. So therefore, how does this military diplomacy, how does this military to military contact play out? Because the Americans jo wahan hai, wo wahan ja rahe honge, jo Americans yahan hai, wo yahan ja rahe honge. It's a very basic way of asking the question. I'm sure you'll have more nuance there. So, General, it's over to you.
See, village wisdom must always be respected. I mean, so what Ambassador Puri is saying, nahi, because वो हमेशा ज़मीनी बात करते हैं. So,
Ji.
but let me just build on that village wisdom. Today, I mean, what is this lean about? This is a lean. If it all you call it a lean, it is a lean on our terms. Today, is in India is strong enough to lean without compromising its interests. I'm very sure that if Ambassador Puri was my boss and he met some American, I'm very confident that he would meet him without compromising any of his interests. Now, take it on a larger scale. The fact of the matter is that military to military relationships matter. Who opened the doors of Asim Munir to Washington? It was Kuruvilla, CNC CENTCOM. So if we have these military to military relationships, they help in a crisis. In any case, our military is firmly under political control. As a general, I cannot move a finger without political clearance. That is one. And the second issue is in this triangular contest between China, USA, and India, what is our choice? Either we stand up to China on our own, we deter it on our own, that would be my first preference. But if we need somebody, what do we need from the Americans? We need neither their blood nor their treasure. We just need their help in the technology space. So AI, space, cyber, quantum. Look कहते हैं भाई वो he cannot be trusted. If he cannot be trusted, we also know when to jerk him off. So today, this is a different India. We are confident. You look at what happened about the trade deal. Did we give in at any point? When people on on Trump's side were opening their mouth unnecessarily, we gave it back to them. So this is a very different India, as I've said. We are no longer a wallflower. We are the toast of the world.
So I can see Ambassador. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you short. I know Ambassador Puri wants to respond, but I just have a follow-up to you. I don't think there's any disagreement. Sorry, it's looping back. Can we speak General Shukla while I... One second, give me a second. Let me just fix the audio if I can. General Shukla, can you hear me?
So, yeah, can I just say one point and then I'd love to hear Ambassador Puri.
Yes.
I am all for strategic autonomy, but not in its puritanical version. I am for a more pragmatic version of strategic autonomy. भाई दुनिया में साथ चलना पड़ता है लोगों के साथ, while I'm a great respecter of the core principle of strategic autonomy. So that is it. But
I was just trying to say that there is no disagreement at all. I think even from the ambassador, he'll speak for himself on the value of military to military contact. We have also seen the roles that militaries can play. Look at Bangladesh. Very interesting handling of the situation by the Bangladesh military that actually remained professional to the very end. I've had many Indian generals talk about how they have maintained very good relations. The India and Bangladesh militaries kept their calm through this period of turmoil. So it totally matters. I don't think that's where the debate is even. Sorry,
where our military diplomacy is underwhelming. Brussels, headquarters of NATO, headquarters of EU. Today, German rearmament is taking place. Europe, is reconfiguring its whole defense framework, outlook. There's not a DA in Brussels. This is where our military diplomacy is underwhelming. So I'm saying we must step it up and it's only to complement diplomacy. In foreign policy, diplomacy is in the lead. Force complements it.
Okay, Ambassador Puri, where, if any, is your disagreement? Ambassador Puri.
Look, on the entire business of the military and diplomacy, I am a very strong votary. Let me give you an example. India-Nepal relations. How many times there are dips? And invariably, it's the quiet contact between the military that helps you get things back on track. So I know this very well, and I'm all for it. No DA in Brussels, General Saab, what should I say, having been ambassador in the EU. But the reason is something else. The reason was very simple. This is the old-fashioned sort of stuff. We were also not allowed to interact with the NATO. That's the nature of how things are happening and so on. Things have moved on, no doubt about that. The point that I'm making is, nobody says strategic autonomy in any puritanical sense. Then you better do non-alignment. It's the best. But, this idea, what happens is gets lost. When you, go into the lean is a nice English word. The Hindi word is much more expressive. Okay, when you do that with a hegemon of that kind, then remember one thing. It's very easy to say you will knock out and you will do this, General Saab. It's very easy to say all that. In the trade deal, I don't want to get into all that with you. But no expert will say that forget your tweets. It's that chap's tweets which counted, and those are exactly
But
how things
Ambassador
have worked
Puri,
out before.
Ambassador Puri, option
So let's leave that out.
General Saab had a practical question, which is also
Yeah,
mine. In the real world, there are no great choices. That is zindagi. Zindagi aisi hai ki there are no
sure,
perfect choices, right?
sure.
Now, given that there are no perfect choices, given that one thing we have learned in the last year is how much hard power matters. We focused a lot on soft power, but hard power, building capacity,
Sure.
building your economy, till you are a work in progress on that score. The world has two major hegemons, China and America. Maybe, Russia is the third great power in the way Trump imagines this tripolar universe. I think what General Shukla is saying is, of course, you're going to have to make some compromises, but that's negotiation. And those are the best options from a set of not great options.
Barkha, let me say this to you. None of us disagree with all of that. That's perfectly fine. Everybody knows that. And good relations, building partnerships is particularly fine. No issue at all. Which is the word that I've been using? The word is lean. I haven't used, as I said, the Hindi expression which says that you've crossed over. This is something that in India, this is a long debate. It's gone on for a long time. What were the reasons why we chose non-alignment? What were the reasons for all that? In my understanding, none of those have really changed. You can call it multi-alignment, etc., etc. But it's very difficult. I gave you these two examples. The Europeans, why aren't they able to stand up? Because in spite of being an economy as large as the United States, as large in technology abilities, because frankly speaking, they lost to the hegemon around them. The Japanese, 25 years, the world's second largest economy. Even you and I didn't count them as being players in the world. This is the necessity. If you and I have that particular thing, and believe me, it's very easy to say, you will extricate yourself. Frankly, there's only one example which managed that. That's the Chinese, and they were not sitting in the lab. They were a very different kind of country, did stuff like Tiananmen Square and so on and so forth, very different. Uh, for a country like India, the kind of country we're having a debate in the English language, and we are more familiar with what happens in American politics than back home in India. It's important that you remember this, and little steps are also important in all this. That's all. Military cooperation, of course, you must do it. As the fourth largest economy, why are you shying away? What is
But
it?
this is not about, you don't see Sergio Gore's visit as the sign of the lean, right? That's not.
Unfortunately, I do, and people
Oh,
do also.
why? Why?
Because Barkha, look,
If you agree that it's routine, why is it a sign of the lean?
no, Barkha, in the normal thing, he's been here for 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, no problem. He can't visit or it's all right. What are you seeing since he's come here? See, these particular things when people say everybody's jumping to get photographs, etc. All this gets noticed. There is a certain element to all that. We need to understand and calibrate that to the extent you can. Helping, I'm very happy if he's helping the relationship, but the onus is on us that thank you for the help. Let's keep it at partnership. It's a very important and difficult take.
Okay, I must allow General Shukla to respond to all of this, but I had a thought of my own. General Saab, you said it's not novel, but the fact is, who you allow in surely is a matter of context. I think 7 months ago, maybe Sergio Gor would not have been welcomed or received in the way. If we didn't have a trade agreement, I don't think this visit would have been happening. One. Two, tomorrow, if the Chinese envoy wants to go, given the China's role in Opsindur, we would not be comfortable. Context matters. I saw this visit as a sign that things have stabilized. Ambassador calls it a lean. I'll say things have stabilized between the two countries. I don't know how you saw it.
I mean, gave you the history of how these visits
Yeah.
started,
Yes.
how they were pretty routine. I gave you my own example. If they stopped, it was because we were going through a patchy phase.
Fair.
And if that patchy phase is over, what do you say? Status quo ante has been restored. But I'm
Okay.
making a deeper point, and here we may disagree a bit. I'm saying that don't lean, but in the areas that you need the Americans, you need them. That's a fact of life. Just as Russia and India are close together, but it has not come in the way of Russia doing so much for the PLA. Their entire first phase of modernization of the PLA was done by the Russians. Look what the Chinese did to the Russians in Ukraine. But for Chinese chips and a whole lot of other military stuff, Russia would be cutting a sorry figure in Ukraine. But India understands that. So we are all in a mature manner. I mean, why am I telling Ambassador Puri this? He knows it. All I'm trying to, and here I may be wrong. I have no qualms to say so. He has greater experience than me. But I'm saying it is not a lean. We are doing with the Americans what is in our interest. And if I may, just what shall I say, give a piece of advice to the Americans, it is that a technologically enabled India is in the American self-interest. Look what happened from the seas to the stars. After that grand signing of the agreement, because of this mutual, or shall we say, our inability to, take these cobwebs out, the substantive issues of the defense relationship didn't progress, because we are constantly lecturing each other on strategic autonomy, this kind of stuff. That comes in the way of meaningful things happening at the lower level. And who loses? India loses, and so does China. Let me also say this, let's just talk about Taiwan. Taiwan may seem too distant, but may I say that, apart from the historical and legacy issues, purely from geostrategics, moment China breaks out of the first island chain, it will neither be in the interest of the Americans or India. So in that geostrategic sense, there is a convergence of interest. Now, can we do something there directly? No. But I'm just telling you how naturally the way geopolitics is moving, the Indo-US relationship is a little more convergent than it was ever in the past.
Okay, let me take last comments. I'll come to you, Ambassador, first. Quad, you made a sort of slightly scoffing remark, ye Indo-Pacific ke saath obsession kya hai? Given Gore's visit, and I take General's point that if there were theater commands, I would not notice ki ye to army hai, wo to admiral hai. It should not have mattered. But given what you call our obsession with the Indo-Pacific, where do you think the Quad stands now that there seems to be some new energy, some new stability in the relations?
Barkha, I want to just tell you this. In the Quad, you have Australia and you have Japan. They are allies of the United States. Okay. And you remember when all this was started off, many people were talking about, can India become an ally? And maybe the guys in the village managed to stop that. I don't know about it. I think, okay, that's the way it is. So let me be very clear.
I can't see, maybe I'm wrong, who am I to say this, but India is never going to join a military alliance.
So Barkha, let me say something to you. There is a certain politics in our country which makes it very difficult for you to cross the de jure Rubicon. Okay. But we've done so much in the past that, in fact, the de facto thing is that that's what we become. And many people ask this question. I have a very different take on all of this. I am very happy. Welcome. Why not American partnership? Excellent, etc. I don't want to get into this Taiwan business because, you should read Donald Trump. His ideas are not, General Saab, and now I would say possibly you have been living in the village too long. This man is very different. This man is very different from the way we think American interests are. He would have no hesitation in having a deal with the Chinese, which would leave us really not knowing what's going on. And he is very keen to do it because of the nature of the individual and all this talk of Rubio, please read the statements. And at the end of it, there was a question and answer, and someone said, the next guy coming up is the Chinese. You used to be a great hawk on China in the Senate. Now what's happened? And he gave a wishy-washy answer for 5 minutes after that. That's the nature of what is happening in the United States, trying to assert only for themselves.
I know, but you can't wish it away. All you can do is be as transactional as them, and negotiate from your.
So Barkha, I wish to see that happening in my country, not only now, earlier on, it was not from the position of great strength, now from a position of strength. But remember and be mindful that others who thought they could do this, not have been very successful. Let's hope that our case is different.
So let me put this before both of you and then give General Shukla the last word. some of us who've been around long enough also remember that these debates come in cycles in our country. Manmohan Singh was willing to risk everything he had for an India-US nuclear deal. The BJP then on the other side made the sort of accusations that today the opposition is making. So history is cyclical. Many of these debates are cyclical. The country has to move on through all of this with self-respect and pride intact and self-interest above all intact. Neither of you need me to tell this. I'm just, gratuitously sharing my own opinion. But General Shukla, let me give you the closing word. Sir.
See, on these issues, there are no closing and definitive words. I mean, see, Admiral Puri has his one view, but let me just engage with him. My reading of the whole US national security strategy, the US defense strategy, Elbridge Colby's two talks or speeches in one in Europe, the other in Korea, tell me this, that the ultimate objective of MAGA America is containing Chinese hegemony in Asia, which means there could be a prospect of a deal, but it is neither in Trump's interest nor in MAGA's interest. So, if it is containing Chinese hegemony in Asia, Americans will be, you see, they've said very clearly, in the first tile in chain, deterrence, denial by deterrence, as explicit as that. And with now Takaichi coming to power in Japan, I think it is now China which has the bigger challenge. So deterrence will or may flow in real terms in the first tile chain. Now, there is, of course, I could be wrong. I mean, I could be wrong. Admiral Puri may be right. But
Admiral
I don't think there is any
ambassador. आपने Freudian slip करके मुझे भी general बनना है. But anyway.
I inadvertently complimented him.
I know you did. That's why I said मुझे भी general बनना है. Even I want to rank. No, sir, please complete your point.
So, but on a serious note, and see, these are the issues which have to be debated. And I seriously feel that the Americans are serious about not giving Taiwan to the Chinese very easily. Not only for historical legacy, democracy, chip issues, but because of that larger statecraft issue I pointed out, geostrategics. Once the PLA breaks out of the first tile chain, Chinese power is going to go further afar. They may be at the doors of Los Angeles at some time, and definitely in the IOR. It should concern us. In the maritime space, it takes 10 to 15 years. And let me make this point. We are at a very critical point in our strategic evolution. Viksit Bharat is 2047, 20 years. So all these issues of, hemispheric influence, power projection, which conversations we were not even prepared to make a couple of years back, the time has come to look at them. And while, you have these lofty objectives, keep your feet grounded. तो गांव में आपके पैर जरूर होने चाहिए, but सोच थोड़ी, it should be a little more cosmopolitan.
I think that's the bottom line. Nothing to disagree with there. In those closing comments, we've spoken a lot about the wisdom of the village. I think all that is being said by both our guests today is keep your feet on the ground, but your head is allowed to take a visit to the clouds ever so often, because why shouldn't you aim for higher than is within your reach immediately, but you must at least seek it and build towards it. And I think that's a fair conclusion to end on. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for this extremely civil, amiable, minor disagreement and a lot of agreement. Enjoyed it thoroughly. Ambassador Admiral Puri and General Shukla, thank you so much for your time today. General Shukla, thank you and take care. Bye-bye. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.